All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you all for attending today's session, creating an academic research poster using PowerPoint. We will be recording today's session, so if you feel more comfortable with your camera off, please keep your cameras off. We also ask that you remain muted, and we will take questions in the chat as we go throughout. My name is Jasmine Shoemaker. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a reference and instruction librarian here at the AOK Library and Gallery, primarily working with humanities, social sciences, and a STEM department. And I have my colleague here as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Samhar Johannes and I am a STEM reference and instruction librarian. My contact information is up above. I work with, like I said, the STEM departments, and it's nice to meet you and we're happy to have you here.
Great. So here's a basic overview of today's session. I'll be covering poster contents, the layout and color and font decisions based on overarching things that you should include in your poster. Then I will turn things over to Semhar, who will be doing a live demo of a poster. So before we get started, we just like to ask you kind of respond in the chat if you have ever created an academic poster before, and if you have, what software did you use? Maybe you used PowerPoint or you've used Canva in the past. Please let us know in the chat at this time what you've used. Totally fine if you haven't used it. We'll go ahead and move on. Okay, so here is a basic overarching definition of what an academic poster is. It is seen as a visual communicative tool that allows you to present your research in a clear, concise, and graphic format. It should attract attention, convey the information clearly. It should also initiate conversations and can also be presented at any stage of the reference or research process. I think this is a common misconception, especially for students, that you can invite feedback if you are in the middle of your research. So these are the overarching goals for any discipline for an academic poster. It should communicate the results of research. It should attract attention and invite collaboration, either with people at your institution or beyond. So let's talk about first the planning stage of each poster, right? Step 1, content. 2, layout. And 3, color and format. We'll be stopping after each section for questions, so keep that in mind, but we'll go ahead and move on now. Poster content. It is very important to note that, especially when working in PowerPoint, you should always have your content that you'll place on the poster in a separate either Word doc, Excel file, etc., to be able to copy and paste this into your PowerPoint slide. This is all to save you time and energy, as there may be formatting issues later on. Okay, so what should actually go inside a poster? This is for any discipline, kind of like the norm, I guess. You should have a title, right? It should be catchy. Maybe a title and then a subtitle underneath that kind of expands on what your title is going to be about. Then you actually have your name under the author section, your name, your advisor's name, any colleagues that you worked with, your specific department, right? Computer science and electrical engineering, as an example. Spell that out, right? Don't just put CSEE, spell that out. Also spell out the name of your institution. As students here at UMBC, I think we've gotten very familiar with acronyms of nearby schools. However, if you're presenting on a larger scale, you will need to spell out UMBC, as folks elsewhere may not know what that means. Next, we have your intro or your abstract, aka what is this poster going to be about? What is your research about? Followed by objectives. What were the goals that you hope to achieve? We have seen this presented in a bulleted list. This is especially helpful if you have limited real estate on your poster. Next, the materials and methods. What did you actually do? Right? This is especially helpful to include any figures, images even, flow charts. Your results. Did your experiment work? What did you actually find out with your research, right? Maybe if you're in the social sciences, what did you find out? Describe your qualitative, anything going on there. Also use images and charts. And we'll talk about this later on with some examples that Semhar will show you and I'll show you. But it's really important to have a mix of text and images. A text-heavy poster is a boring poster. And you want to be able to invite people and entice them with eye-catchy images. Next, we have the conclusions, any major results or findings. Was your hypothesis supported? And this is where you could also include any future directions for your research, right? Maybe you'd like to expand on it. Maybe this is for a dissertation and you'd like, this to be more applicable to people where you'd like to be hired, right? Future directions. Where would you like to go next? This is something that would be, I would say, optional if you have space, would be your references. Especially if you have maybe just a few references, that's okay. If you have limited space, we also recommend printing them out to have, especially if you're doing an in-person poster presentation. We've also seen posters with a QR code or a tiny URL or a bit.ly link for a broader bibliography. We just ask that you be mindful because you may have limited real estate to be able to pull a full bibliography. Your acknowledgments, however, are non-negotiable. You should be thanking specific contributions, funders for your research, any individuals like your mentor or your advisors, any conflicts of interest. As I mentioned before, a poster that is just text, people will walk by or they will not be as enticed to kind of engage with your content. We mentioned before flow charts, things like that, graphs. You can also put photos, diagrams, any creative artwork pieces, etc. Okay, the planning stage. It is important to note that your image resolution is very important. You can right click on an image to see kind of the properties. It should be no lower than 150 dpi or dots per inch. This is to ensure that your images are going to be visible. And again, you should be able to copy and paste said images into PowerPoint as well. So the same thing applies for images that we went over at the top with the text. Questions about the content? Okay, Semhar is in chat right now monitoring, so if there are questions throughout, she'll be able to address those. We'll go ahead and move on. Step 2, the layout. What should this actually look like? Keep things simple. You don't want busy things around. It's harder for your audience to kind of track how things should be read and flow. Um, Group related text and content together. Your poster will be viewed from the top left to the bottom right. So things should be grouped accordingly to be able to be viewed that way. Again, make sure images and text flow throughout. And make sure you include white or negative space, aka space where there is not any text or image, but natural kind of borders and lines that create direction that your poster should be viewed in, columns, if you will. We'll talk a little bit about negative space and some examples later. So here's an example from Indiana University. We've got a bolded border here at the top. We've got the title. This one actually includes blocks, right? Outlines that you can put your content in. This is the negative space that I just mentioned here, these columns where there is no text, no image. However, it does include a nice little frame around said blocks. So again, we've got our abstract here, and we're going to read things like this. Top left to the bottom right. Here's another example. You've got your title, author and affiliations, abstract, introduction. This allows us to have some images in the middle of the poster, right? Right there in the center with my results, maybe my methods, right? Or a mix of the two. Here we have more space for the references here at the bottom right. This is a good poster. This is a good layout of a poster. Here's an example of a printed poster. Pretty standard. This can be something that you could model yours after. Questions about the layout? Okay. Let's talk a little bit about color and font choices. We recommend keeping it pretty conservative, 2 to 3 colors max in terms of maybe borders, boxes that you're using, right? Your title box might be a color, things like that. Keeping it pretty conservative with your black font choice, especially on a white background or a light background. We ask that you avoid dark colors. It's going to be very hard to read your text if you're choosing a dark color for your background. And keep in mind that due to printers being kind of different and varying, you will have some shade differences. So if you're printing with your maybe on-campus printer like Common Vision or etc., there might be a few different shade differences, 2 to 3 shades. So I recommend maybe checking with Common Vision before or your printer before saying, hey, maybe this is what I'm thinking. Is this accurate? But you still will have some shade differences, so keep that in mind. Font sizes can be kind of viewed in a range. If you are within this range, you're going to be good in terms of being able to view things on your poster. Keep in mind that because this is a range, you might start off on the lower end and find that you maybe don't have as much text and maybe you want way less negative space or you want to utilize the real estate on your poster more. Feel free to up your text size remaining in this range. It's like a safety range, if you will. And keeping it pretty conservative to be able to view the text, right? With your font styles, Times New Roman and Arial being the most popular. If you choose something like cursive, it's going to be very difficult to read your poster, just FYI. Okay, I'm going to now turn it over to Semhar, who will be talking about poster examples.
Thank you, Jasmine. Give me 1 second to pull up, start sharing from my screen. So it always helps me to look at examples to get a sense of what all of what Jasmine said, whether it was from how to put together a poster in terms of like the content, the layout, or the color and the font to kind of see it all together. And like I said, it always helps to look at examples. So we're going to see examples from our colleagues, so that they be our faculty or our fellow students slash staff. And so here's the first example. So you're going to note the title is nice and prominent. The author information's right underneath, which is redacted. It starts on the top left, abstract, bottom right, references. So the flow that Jasmine talked about, you'll see here. So we start over here, and it's read from abstract downward. Then we go to the next column, middle, read from the top down, and then we go to the last column, top down. We end with references. So the flow makes sense. And so I want you guys to kind of pay attention to a couple of things. First, note the fact that the background color, which is called gradient, it's okay to do that. But if you choose to do that, you have to make sure that the dark color that it starts with isn't so dark that when you have dark text with a dark background that it isn't difficult to read. So here it is. So the dark purple at the top is hard to read with the dark text. But doing gradient is okay, just as long as the dark color isn't too dark. Oops. Okay, another thing to note is the font size for the headers. So they are within the appropriate range that Jasmine mentioned, but they're on the low range. So this person should have moved a little bit higher because look how tiny it looks compared to everything else. But you'll note the fact that there's headers. So that's nice. It helps with the flow, but the headers are within boxes. You'll see, a little bit of column, not a lot. You'll know that the fact that the text went all the way to mostly to the edge, so it looks too dense. And can you guys note how many colors you see on this text? No guess? There's a lot of colors. There's too many colors. There's more than the 2 to 3 that was recommended. So there's actually around 6 colors. And so this is what it meant when you have it too many, it looks chaotic. It looks busy. Okay, here's another example. You'll see again the title at the top, author information redacted. You'll know that the fact that it starts with abstract over here, and then it ends with references and acknowledgement. So the flow makes sense. You'll note that the fact that it has headers, and you'll note that the headers aren't necessarily the ones that Jasmine mentioned because those are just the most common, but you can, tweak. And so this person did tweak. So they said research question, participants, methods, results, but there's headers, nice and prominent. You'll know that there's columns, so that helps. You'll know that the fact that there's only 3 colors, the 2 shades of blue, and then the 1 shade, and then the white. So the the 2 biggest criticism against this, and this is just aesthetics, not, I'm not criticizing the actual the content of the research, just the aesthetics. So the abstract here on the left, you'll note that it's in the darker blue section. It doesn't look like it is part of the poster. It looks like it's an attachment, an appendage. And then the second criticism is that it's very text heavy. Here's another example. Title at the top, author information redacted. And so you'll note it starts with introduction, top left, and it ends with discussion and future directions. Okay, that makes sense. It has headers, which is nice. It has images. It has text, but the text is not too text heavy. But the biggest criticism of this poster, and it's actually the only really I say major criticism, is that over here on the bottom left, you'll see that underneath the introduction, hypothesis, and prediction, it has acknowledgement and then references. That flow does not make sense. Remember, because your poster starts from the top left and it's read downward, and it goes to the middle, read downward. And so you do not throw in the introduction when you're at sort of the beginning portion of your poster. The introduction or the references are at the end, and the end is at the bottom right section. One more, actually 2 more, and I'll be quick. And so this one is very obvious. And I know a lot of people, tend to giggle when they first see this, but this is honestly the most accurate representation of a poster. usually the first time around. Most students, most individuals put a lot of text. They think just that one more sentence, that one more section, that one more paragraph, it needs to be included. The viewers need to see this. The audience needs to read this. And it ends up looking like this. And this is very intimidating. It is text heavy, and people are going to walk right by it. Your poster is supposed to be just the highlights, the major accomplishments, the major sort of results, not every single fact. Because when you have every single fact, it looks like this. And then to end on a good note, title. So this is not from us, but I like this poster so much, and I always like to show it, end on a positive note. Title, author information, top left, abstract, bottom right, conclusions. You'll know that the colors are within the 2 to 3 range. They're soothing. It all blends. It has headers, appropriate size headers. It has text. It has images. This is an aesthetically pleasing poster in terms of not only of the images, but also the text. This is just highlights. Note how many results they have. Note how many lines within the conclusion. It's brief. Okay. So printing services on campus, we have several. We have Melissa, who works at Research Graphics Core Facilities. She's on the first floor of the bio department. In order to get her to print your posters, you need to have access to a string chart. And students who are like PhD students tend to have access to their department string chart. Students who belong to a scholars program have access to a string chart. It's basically like the department's credit card. And so if you have access to it, great. If not, she cannot work with you. For students that don't have access to it, there's still other places that you can get printing services. There's Common Vision, which does great, quick service, excellent service. They've done a lot of service for Jasmine and I. You can also speak to your departments to see if they have any connections where they can have they can access the department's, like I said, credit card. If not, there's like local stores, and they do excellent service. But remember, the more time you give them, the cheaper it is. The less time you give them, the more expensive. Okay, so any questions? Great. So let's start. Jasmine, can you put the links? Thank you, Jasmine. So the very first thing that we're going to do is step 1, as was mentioned earlier. Step 1 means that we write the text, we gather the images, we create the charts, etc. And we have it in one centralized location. So the only thing that we're doing is copying and pasting. So we've done that for you already. We've done it in a Microsoft Word document, and it's been uploaded to Box. Please download it, because you will need to access text. So that's step 1. Step 2 is the layout. So this is the general layout we're going to follow. We'll make some modifications here and there, but this is the general layout. And then step 3, we are working with 4 different text sizes. So remember, we have the title text, we have the author text, we have the headers text, and then we have the body text. It gets very confusing to remember. So it's important to write this down, and so we've done it already. We've determined what the font style is. We've determined what the font sizes are for each of the sections. We may have to adjust, but this is what we're going to start off with. And we've determined what the color themes are. And we're going to keep it, again, simple, because when it's too busy, it looks chaotic. So the colors that we're going to select is, we're going to have a white background. We're going to have headers, a title header, a header for each of the various sections, and it's going to be in a light blue box, but I'll show you other ways that you can add color. So we can do gradient, we can do solid colors, we can do patterns, but I'll show you. So it looks like we are done with step 1, 2, and 3. We can open up PowerPoint. So I want you to go to PowerPoint and not do anything else. So hold on one second. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to do this. Move you guys over here. Okay. And move you guys over here. Oops. Cancel. I was playing around earlier today, so as you can see. Okay, so from PowerPoint, I want you to click blank presentation. From blank presentation, I want you to go to Home, then select Layout, then select Blank. So you now have a blank slide that you're working with. The next thing that we need to do is add the dimensions. And so it's a little different depending upon what version of Microsoft you have, what version of Mac you have. So first I'll explain for a PC, and then I'll explain for a Mac. So I want everybody to go up to the top and select Design, and then go to Slide Size, then Custom Slide Size. Sorry, and it's a tongue twister. For some people, you instead of what is it called, looking for slide size, you may have to look up something called page setup. Okay, so this is where we put the dimensions of our poster. We have to get it right because there's when you put the dimensions on your poster and then you put content on your poster and then you realize halfway through it that you selected the wrong size, you can't go back and change it with content already on it because it's going to print wonky. So you have to get it right. If you don't get it right the first time around, you're going to have to start from scratch. So get your poster dimensions right from the beginning. And so here on the width, I'm going to pick a popular size of 46 by 46. And then I'm going to hit OK. Hold on one second. I'm going to let the other person get chat. Sorry, I am doing multiple things simultaneously, and that is not good. Okay. For other students who have Mac, I want you all to go to Theme and then select Page Setup. And then this is where you can put the slide size 4 drop down. And then you put in 46 by 46. Okay, we're still not ready to put any content. The next thing that we're going to do is still, in order to help us put content, we need assistance. So the assistance would be a ruler, grid lines, etc. So we're going to go up to the top. And again, first I'm going to talk to my PC people, and then I'll talk to my Mac people. So I'm going to go up to the top, and I'm going to select View. And then I'm going to select Ruler, Grid Lines, and Guides. Then right next to the word Show, I'm going to select the tiny little arrow. And I'm going to make sure that every box here is checked off, has a check next to it. So this ensures that when I am putting content, I'm making sure everything's in alignment, because trust me, when you print it and it's not in alignment, it's very obvious. And so for my Mac people, so for you guys, it's a little bit different. So I want you all to go up to View. And then I want you to select Grid Lines. A grid line will appear on your poster slide. And so you can simply just copy and paste. Or another thing that you can do is right click your poster, select grid and guides, and then add vertical or add horizontal. You get to select which one. It's more cumbersome in the Mac, unfortunately, where you have to like individually put like the lines. This is to assist you. It's not mandatory, but again, for assistance. So the next thing that we're going to do is that we're going to start adding background colors, or at least I'm going to show you how to add background colors. So the first way is to right click your poster, select format background, and then on the right hand side you'll get a panel, and the panel will give you options to add color different ways. So you can pick a solid color. So I have the option solid fill is selected, and then, open up the color drop box and determine, what color. Or I can do gradient. And remember, we said gradient, it's okay, but you have to make sure that the dark isn't too dark. And there's lots of options you can do here in terms of like the concentration, the angle, picture, pattern. Remember though, you don't want the background to be so distracting that it takes away from the content. So I'm going to go back to solid fill, and I'm going to keep mine white, and then I'm going to hit apply to all. There's a second way for you to add background. You can go up to the top and select design, and you can select one of the preset themes. Now, picking any of these themes is fine, but be strategic about it. As Jasmine mentioned, real estate space is a big issue on a poster. So for instance, if I pick this particular, theme, it's very pretty. It has a nice little border, but immediately the space where there's the border, I can't put any text. I can't put any images. So it shrinks the size of like available real estate that I can actually work with. So here's another example. Look at this big block of like purple at the top. I can't really, that's hard to work with in terms of I can maybe put text, but I can't put any images on the top right hand, top left hand. Basically the big purple block is the title section, and that's it. And that takes up maybe a good 20% of my poster. And so again, it shrinks the amount of available content space that I can put content in. So like I said, just be strategic, be smart about which one you select. Okay, so we're now finally ready to add content to our poster. So the very first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to add a title box. And so I'm going to go up to the top, and I'm going to select insert, and I'm going to select shape. I can select any shape here, but I'm going to keep mine conservative. So I'm just going to pick the rectangle, and I'm going to draw, or drag, I should say. And so this is where the ruler and the grid lines, all of that comes in help, in use. So I'm going to go to 18 on both sides. And I'm going to keep it here. Later on, I may adjust it. Oops. But we'll see. We'll see. Okay, so the very first thing to note is the fact that it's in a shade that I didn't select, and I currently cannot put any text. So let's first change the color. So I'm going to right click the shape, and I'm going to go and select format shape. And then on the right hand side, you'll see a panel, and the panel will say format shape. And you've seen, a panel similar to this. So just like before, I'm going to pick solid fill, or I can do gradient, whatever, but pick solid fill. I'm going to open up the Dropbox and I'm going to select the shade of blue that I'm interested in. And that's it. Okay. The next thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to add the title. And so I need to first have the ability to add text. So I'm going to go again to my poster and to the shape. And on the shape, I'm going to right click and I'm going to select edit text, edit text. And you should see a tiny little cursor blinking. Now, before you can start typing or copying and pasting anything, you need to prep that area. And so I know from my downloaded document, the document that talked about the various, what is it called, sizes that I've selected. And so the title size that I've selected for our poster is 80. So I'm going to change it to 80. And I'm going to make sure that the font is black. And I'm going to change the font to Arial. Now my area is ready and I'm going to add the title. The next thing I want underneath the title is the author information. So again, from my downloaded document that talked about the various sizes of each of my texts, it tells me that the author information size is 54. So I'm going to go again to the top and select 54 as font size. Make sure that the font is still black and make sure that the font style is still Arial. It is. And so because everything is ready, I'm going to put the author information. Remember that the title is the most prominent text on your poster, and everything underneath that should be a little bit less. You may find yourself having to adjust. So maybe I find the title to be too small or the author information, too insignificant. Maybe I need to increase it. I'll do that, but I'm going to stay within the range. So the next thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to add the header for my introduction. So this is just like adding the title header. So just like before, I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to select Shape. I'm going to select the shape that I want, and I can select any, but again, I'm going to keep it conservative. So I'm going to select Rectangle, and I'm going to draw where I think I want it. I may find myself adjusting it later on, the size, the width, that's fine. But for now, this is what I want. And just like before, wrong color, can't add any text into it. So let's start changing. So I'm going to right click it and I'm going to select Format Shape, Solid Fill, open up the Dropbox and select the color. Is it this one? Nope. Try to match the color. There. Now that I've changed the color, I'm going to now add the ability to add text. So right click, edit text, and a tiny little cursor is blinking. So just like before, I need to prep. And so my downloaded document tells me the header text is 48. So I'm going to go up to the top and select 48. Make sure that the font color is black and make sure that the font is Arial. Now that I've prepped it, I can type introduction. And as you can see, ooh, it's a little light, or excuse me, it's a little small. I'm probably going to have to adjust it. Okay, so the next portion, I want you all to watch me first and then do it with me. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add the actual text for the introduction to the poster itself and not to a box, because I want to show you that, the ability to do both. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my downloaded document, and give me a moment. I'm going to, here's my downloaded document, and I'm going to go and copy the introduction. Oops, making sure I don't copy the, okay, I've copied the introduction, and I'm going to go back, So I'm going to go to Insert, Text Box, and I'm going to draw where I want the text to be. Later on, I may again have to adjust it, but for now, it's fine. And I'm going to prep the area. And the area tells me, my downloaded document tells me that the body text is 40. So make sure the font color is black, the font size is 40, and that the font is Arial. Now that I've prepped it, I have to be mindful that how I copy and paste so that I don't bring unwanted characters. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to Paste, and I'm going to open up the tiny little triangle, and then I'm going to select Paste Special, and I'm going to select Unformatted text. And there it is. Later on, again, I may find myself wanting to widen it or narrowing it, we'll see. But this is how I copy and paste mindfully that I don't bring unwanted characters. So let's do that together as a group. So we're going to copy the introduction or any text that you have available with you. Once you've done that, you're going to go and select Insert, locate Text Box, and draw or drag where you want the text to be. Go up to the top and prep the area. So make sure the text color is black. Make sure the text size is 40. And make sure that the font is Arial. And then once you've done that, you then go to Paste, but you don't click necessarily Paste. You click on the tiny little arrow. And then you select Paste Special. And then you select Unformatted Text. There it is. So the next thing I want to show you is how to add images. So you can select an image from the computer online, or you can select an image that you have already on your computer. So I'm going to look for an image online. So I'm going to go to the top, and I'm going to select Insert, and I'm going to select Online Pictures. And I will continue with this theme that I've been doing. And so I will pick red elm trees. And I'm going to select an image that I like. Actually, no, I like this image better. It's going to show up in the middle. Drag it to where you want it. And so we don't necessarily have time to show you all the different ways to kind of manipulate this image, enhance this image, do add various features. But what I do want you to be aware is that when you click on the image itself, you do have the option to crop it. But most importantly, I want you all to be aware of the DPI. The DPI has to be greater than 150. If you print an image with poor resolution, it's going to print poorly. And so there are a couple of ways for you to determine what the DPI is. So as Jasmine mentioned, you can right click it, click on properties, and it'll tell you what the DPI is. You can also use the app, or excuse me, the software on your PC called Pictures. That will also tell you what your DPI. And also for Mac people, you can use the app called Preview, and that too will tell you what your DPI is. Okay. You can also add charts and graphs, which many of you all will. So again, we're going to go to our downloaded document, and we're going to go all the way to the bottom. Here is a chart. Here is the title. Okay, but for right now, I just want to capture the chart. So I'm going to right click it, copy, and then I'm going to go to my downloaded document. And so, like before, we have to be a little mindful when we copy and paste. And so I'm going to go up to paste and open up a tiny little arrow. This time, I'm going to select use destination theme. And it's going to show up in the middle, very small. So I'm going to first move it to my desired location. And then from the corners, I'm going to drag it. Okay. And so what you should note immediately is that, it doesn't necessarily have like the title like figure one and a short description that you'll have to add with the text, which you all know how to do. But what I want you all to be aware is the fact that one of the things you should have noticed in the very last poster that we showed you was that all the colors matched. The images match the colors of the images match the colors of the poster. Everything was in alignment. So right now, the colors that we have on our poster are just blue and white. So this orange sticks out big time. So how do we have this orange change? So if you click on the actual chart itself, you'll get two tabs that show up at the top. You'll get a design tab and a format tab. So I'm going to click on the design tab, and you have the option to change the colors. If you have that option, do it. You want everything to be in alignment. Your poster just looks more polished. So I'm going to select the option where it gives me a blue that matches, again, the blue. Oops, that's not what I want. There, the blue of my poster. Now my poster looks more aesthetically pleasing. And so let's say that I've been doing this for a while. I've added all of the various sections. I've added the title, the author, the introduction, the results, the methods. I've added all the images. I've added the figure information, the little short description, but I'm not yet done. So if I just need to save it so I can come back and edit it, what I need to do is go simply to File. Let me just save this right now. Browse. And you want to save this as a PowerPoint. When you are done with your poster and you're ready to send it to your various printers, and so whether it's Common Vision, whether it's Melissa from the bio department, or your various entities, FedEx, Kinko's, etc., they're going to ask you to save it as a PDF. So what I usually do is that I give them both options. I give them the PDF option and I give them the PowerPoint option. And the reason why I give them both is that if they notice a problem on my poster, because a lot of these individuals, decent people, if they see something really wonky, really strange, really something, glaringly obvious, they can just go in, they'll contact you. But if you give them permission, they'll just go in and then like make the edits to your PowerPoint and then create a new PDF instead of going back and forth, them asking you, can you send me, or can you make this change, et cetera, et cetera. And with that, I want us to go back 1 second. I'm going to go back to our presentation. There it is. Can everyone see the PowerPoint?
We see the slides.
Okay, great. And so if we gave you the text and if we gave you the images, could you create this poster?
You have a
It should be.
yes.
Everybody can. Everybody in this space can. This is adding an image. You all know how to do that. This right here, the header, that is a shape. Shape, shape, shape. You know how to add text to the poster itself. We just showed you that. Here's another example. Could you create this? Yes, everybody can. These are shapes, the headers. We know how to do that. We know how to add text to the poster. We know how to add images or charts. This right here is just a shape on the left-hand side. That's it. A shape, and you had the ability to add text. So as Jasmine said, there are handouts for best practices. There are handouts in how to make a poster using PowerPoint and using a Mac. Excuse me, using a PC and using a Mac. Let's get this piece. So something that Jasmine and I do quite often is that we work with our students in our departments if they need like a second pair of eyes to give them like a review or just help them with like, what do you see glaringly obvious or glaringly wrong or like, just with your posters, we're happy to do that. So feel free to contact us. And so Jasmine works with, I was going to
A
say
lot.
a lot. And I work, just assume that I work with the STEM. She works with the STEM, or excuse me, she works with everything else and IS. How's that? Everything else and IS. Like, I think that's just like the best,
That's
best description.
accurate.
Everything else, and then there's IS. And I just work with the STEMs, not IS. Okay, with that, I'm going to stop sharing